Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Yamdu University. Yamdu University webinar. I'm Mick from Yamdu, and today I'm going to be giving you a sense of what we offer in our academic plan. So first of all, thanks to all of you for joining. We're very thankful to have you on board, and I hope that I can give you a sense in the course of around 30 to 35 minutes of everything that we have built for our academic clients, students and teachers alike. So I'm sure that a lot of you are wondering, those of you who don't have direct experience of Yamdu University already, exactly how does this system function? And it's a bespoke version of Yamdu. Yamdu exists as a tool for all kinds of visual content projects. But basically, the academic version allows you to work with teacher and student needs in mind. So we built it, according to that, and we understand that students need a framework and they need guidance and support. And they also need to be encouraged to take ownership of their projects. And that's one of the core things that we offer, that the student can work with a degree of autonomy, while the teacher, for example, can oversee not just a student project, but multiple student projects, because of course, the volume is an important part of this as well. And we know very well from our student clients, or from our university clients, that it's not just the case of working on 3 or 5 or 10 projects at once. It can often be the case that they're working on up to 100 or even more projects at once. How do they manage that effectively? That's a key question, and that's something that we have built the system to make it easier for them to do. So I just want to also give you a sense of things from the teacher perspective. Because what we learned, and a lot of the reasoning behind why we use the system, is basically, or why we built the system, is that we realize that teachers have to deal with a huge volume of information. How do they keep it all together? How do they track it over time? Is it something that they can return to weeks or months or years later? Those are all questions that came up when we looked for feedback, when we asked people, how do you currently do things? What we heard, of course, again and again, is that lots of people were using disparate systems, things that didn't speak to each other. File management on one side, then they were using different systems to host video content, then they were communicating through, an internal university server, or, through different messaging systems, and nothing was collected in one location. So it was very difficult to keep track of everything, and small little tasks that mightn't seem like a lot, over time and with a large project volume, become very difficult, to take up a lot of time. And from our perspective, and also the perspective of the academic staff, this was redundant work that needed to be eliminated in some way. So that was the idea of why we put together Yamdu University. And we took a lot of feedback, of course, and we think we've built something that makes it a lot easier to work with all of these things. So I want to give you, first of all, a little impression of exactly what we offer. And you can see here that Yamdu University is your classroom in the cloud. It's the complete tool set for film schools, universities, students, and teachers, everyone all in the same place. And of course, the key thing is that it doesn't matter if it's an Ivy League college or if it's a small film school. We serve every type of client, and the system is customized to their need. And the idea, as you can see here, is to create a perfect framework for learning. And we already have some customer success stories from universities up here. You can see that Yamdu helps you to put together information very, very quickly. And if you've got a large volume, you can set up projects and teams and everything you need very, very quickly, which is a huge advantage over the way that things have previously been done. So first of all, some of the key things that I think it's important to know about Yamdu University. First of all, it's accessible anywhere and anytime. It is a cloud-based system. We're hosted by Microsoft Azure. So basically, you and your students can access projects on your desktops, laptops, tablets, and phones at any point. All you need is an internet connection. And you don't need me to tell you that for digital native students, this is a big boon. They really like the fact that they can just access their detail whenever they might need to. It's not something that's just on a desktop in a back office. It doesn't exist solely on campus. It's information basically that they can access and update in real time. And the other key advantage is, of course, that the faculty can do the same. If a student has a problem, if there's something that you want to help with, if you want to just check in at any point, you're not, again, wedded to a particular computer. You're not stuck at one desk. This information is there when you need it at any time. Now, of course, Yamdu University is an educational tool, and that means that it's structured to provide a framework for the students to help them navigate a project. Students need to kind of learn the system of filmmaking, whatever point at which they come in at, through the system itself. And the structure is there to make it clear that, these things are interrelated, that a breakdown leads on to departmental work, that a shooting schedule can often be the benefit then for the call sheet that needs to be created afterwards, and shot list and storyboard and so on. All of these things have to be understood within the framework of the entire production. So that's very, very important. The other important thing is that, of course, we provide the teachers with the ability to add the information they think is useful for their students. So that could be files, it could be links, it could be videos, it could be, previous course documents. Anything that would be useful as a resource for the student can be preloaded into every project that a student works on. So again, the teacher doesn't have to be available to share relevant documentation at all times. The student has that to work with right from the beginning. And in Yamdu University, the students can create everything. Everything from production schedules to breakdowns, shot lists and storyboards, whether you're working on scripted or non-scripted content. There are AV scripts for the kind of projects that might require that. And things like the day out of days can be generated very easily. Students come to understand that, it makes sense sometimes that a shooting schedule follows certain criteria, that an actor who's available for the first week of the shoot shouldn't be scheduled a month later for a pickup, so you have to kind of factor all of these things in. And you have script sides, shooting schedules, call sheets, all of the essentials that, of course, any student needs to know if they're thinking about entering this industry at any point. Also here you can see that we have effective administration. If you ask me, that's probably the core thing that Yamdu University is designed to do. As a teacher, you have oversight over what your student is doing. It's not overbearing. I don't think the student feels like someone's always watching over their shoulder. It's more a sense that if I run into an issue, if I'm not sure of something, the teacher is always there ready to jump in. And the teacher also has that sense that at any point I can jump in, see how someone is progressing, have tasks been completed, are they adding documents, are they doing what I hope they need to do to accomplish what I've set out. And that I think is very important too. It's a kind of a low-key oversight over all information, and it provides the teacher and all faculty members with one centralized location where all key information can be found. Also here, of course, we have autonomy for students. The whole process of a film school or a university or whatever it may be is to gradually give the student confidence to be able to take over tasks and have confidence in everything that they need to do to accomplish their projects. And we try to help that process by providing a framework that helps them navigate different production steps and stages effectively. And this is a key thing. The teacher is there to oversee rather than guide. Of course, the teacher can step in or the faculty can step in and help. Some people are more hands-on than others, but the key thing is that the person can decide for themselves. Is the student progressing well? Should I leave them go as they're currently going? Let them add information. They seem to be on top of things, and I'll check in again in a week, see if there's something I can do to help. Or you can kind of jump in every day if you wish to and see exactly each new piece of information that's being added. And we make it very, very easy to see what's new, what's coming into the project. Are there new conversations? Is there new delegated work? How are things progressing? Communication is vital. And one of the things when we asked faculty and teachers and also students about when we were building the system is How do you communicate information? And often it was, again, fragmented, different systems, not communicating to each other, and always with hundreds of emails thrown on top. So if, for example, you need to remember something from 2 months ago, it's very, very hard to just find that information quickly, look for that attachment you need, look for that document, and remember exactly what it was that was meant to be done. In Yamdu, that is completely avoided because the system is a communication and collaboration hub in itself. You can communicate directly with your students in Yamdu. They can communicate with you as well, making it very, very simple. And again, because Yamdu allows you to have projects where it's one student working or hundreds of students working together, depending on the type of project, that communication can be very basic and straightforward and one-to-one, or much more elaborate for a larger team. And you can see here too that we cover all departments, all roles, all stages. That means basically that we try to control everything that a project has and all of the key things. So students, of course, and as is often the case in their studies, are not working in one specific role. If they are, that's fine. If they're doing production, that's perfectly fine. If they're focusing on costume, that's fine too. But if they have to get a sense of all of the different roles that go into a production and getting everything done, then they can try those things. In one project, they might be a producer, on the other, a director, the next they're on costume, the next they're taking care of locations, or multiple roles at once. Whatever the case is, it's very easy to assign those roles, assign access rights, control everything. And you can see that we cover all of the key departments and all of the key positions as well, because we want students to play out all of these roles in real time as they work on their short films and everything else. You can also see too, and again, this is vital from the faculty side of things, that the key information that students add, like actors, locations, costumes, props, all of that information is saved in an automatically generated university database. It feeds in from the projects. So again, on future projects, if your students say, do we have some suggestions for actors? Is there some locations that it might be possible to shoot at? You can share that information. You can say, this is the location. Here's how we found the permits. It was quite reasonable. We think it'll work. Or here are some cast people that we know locally that might be a good fit for this project if you want to, weigh up the options. So one of the key things, perhaps the greatest time saver from the faculty perspective, is the ability to template everything. You can template projects, you can set templates so that basically every time you create a type of project, you can decide exactly how it should be structured. Should it be pre-filled with tasks? Should there be a production schedule? What tools are necessary for this this project? Everything can be customized according to your needs. And once you do that once, you can reuse that on every subsequent project you work on. You can create one template and create 100 projects and have the students immediately get to work with the structure and the information that you want them to have. And that information is reusable. So if you did it last year, you can do it again this year. Same structure, same template. It worked well. It was quick. It was effective. You can do it the exact same way in Yamdu as well. And of course, the structure is goal and deadline orientated to provide focus. It would be nice if the students are kind of working away on their own. They're getting a chance to get a feel for everything. But at the end of the day, they have things to do. There are deadlines for when those things need to be done. They can be set and followed very easily. And there are little warnings in the system to remind people that that deadline's approaching. Don't forget about it. It's popping up on their dashboard. And that makes sure that they're not drifting off and forgetting to realize that there are important things to be accomplished. A couple of final things here as well before we jump directly into the system and I showcase exactly how it works. Yamdu is an information resource. All of the key information can be stored in one place. So if they need a detail, they can proactively search for it. They know where information is shared, and they then have the option basically to see the detail, check it out, get a sense of what needs to be done. And again, that can take important pressure off the faculty, that they don't have to interact for every small thing. The students can actually move forward with that by themselves. And finally, two very, very important things. There are lots of students in many of the universities that work with Yamdu. They're all working on their projects. They're all trying to do the best job they possibly can. We don't think it's the faculty's job to fully explain the system to them. We've done it thousands of times, so we take over that. We can provide the faculty with an onboarding. We can also provide the students. We can do it together if necessary, but we can basically take an hour and say, welcome to Yamdu. This is the system. This is the structure. This is what you can do. And as well as that, if you have any questions, you can contact us directly. Again, we don't want faculty, teachers to be the first line of support. They're busy enough as it is. So instead, if someone is wondering, how do I do something in Yamdu, or they need some additional information, they can contact us directly. And I think that's a vitally important service that we provide that, again, opens time up for the faculty, for the creative talent, for the teachers, for everyone working on a project to focus on the creative aspects and learn about the wonderful world of filmmaking in an effective way. But again, that's a little overview of some of the key things Yamdu provides. That's all well and good, but now let's take a look at the actual system itself. So I have now just entered my Yamdu. This is quite simplified because I just want to give you a sense of what it might look what it might look like from a faculty perspective. So let's say I'm a lecturer in film and I'm overseeing, a number of course projects. Right away, when I jump into Yamdu, I can see if I have meetings or events. These might be online, these might be in person. Whatever the case may be, I can track them here. And of course, a key thing that Yamdu provides is the ability to work remotely. Everything can be done directly in the system. It does not require that everyone is physically in the same location. That's obviously been very important over the last year, unfortunately, but it does provide the ability to work without everyone being in the same place. Everything is in one location, and it's easy to discuss things in real time, even if you need to share your screen and discuss things so that you're looking at the same information. But here on my dashboard, I can see, for example, in this overview section that I'm working on a number of different projects right here. I'll come back to the calendar because that allows you to oversee lots of different projects in one place. But I can see, okay, we've got different projects here. We've got some thesis films. We're doing a little breakdown exercise. These might be individual projects or class projects. We'll come back to that as well. And I can see here the tasks in each of these projects. It could be very elaborate. It could be quite simplified. I can be involved in the tasks, or I can simply oversee the tasks that I've created for others. But I have a sense right here of how everything is progressing. And if any of these go red, I can directly jump in and see what's happening. Is something stalled? Is work being done? Has communication slowed down a bit? Maybe I can give that student a prompt or say, is everything okay? Anything you'd like to discuss? Do you need help with anything? So you have that ability directly within the system to track lots of information in real time in one place. You also see here that you have a database of information. So of course the university staff are added above the actual level of a project. That comes later. And you can see here that you have the administrators who can see and do everything. You have the teachers and mentors who have access to lots of information as well. And you can see the access rights right here. And you have the employees and staff as well. So you can see directly, everyone on the university side who's working on these projects and manage what they can see or do here in this university database. You have, as well as that, all of the students. You can import them. I've just imported a few to give you a sense of this. You can pull them in via CSV. That's something an admin usually does, just to get everyone in and make it clear that, these are the people that we're working with this year. These are the students. But you can also add the students just in the project, and they'll be saved to the address book. But you can also keep that for freelancers if you want. It's entirely up to your discretion. One of the key things, as I mentioned, is that Yamdu builds databases of information. So for example, any actors that the students work with or that they consider for a role will be saved to the university database, and they can be reused on future projects whenever necessary with all of the key information attached. So again, 2 years down the line, if you think, oh, that guy that worked on the student project was quite good, you can just jump into his profile, take a look at his phone number, contact him, see if it might be a possibility for the student project. Or you can just, give the student the option to do that. The other key information from each project that is collected are the locations, of course. All of those are saved and reusable, and also the costumes and props. So all of that key detail is saved. And again, sometimes universities have repositories where all of this information, or all of these different things are actually saved and stored and retrievable. And then that information can be added directly right here. But in the university interface, which you're seeing right here, I want to show you perhaps the most important thing, and that is project templates. There are different types of projects on in university productions. Some of them are quite small, they're quite short. It's maybe trying to teach a student or all of your students one thing: how to do a breakdown, how to create a production schedule, how to do shooting scheduling, how to create a call sheet. These might be short things. It's 2 days, it's a week, it's 2 weeks, whatever it might be. The building blocks that you kind of build up appreciation for the different aspects of cinema with, so that then eventually the students can branch out and create more elaborate things like class projects or final year films or thesis films, whatever it might be. So let's say, for example, you had a breakdown exercise. You wanted the students simply to break down a script you had given them. You can see here that I've created a template for projects like this. And I've preloaded it with information that I think is relevant. And I can do this every single time I create a project. So when I go in here, let's say I create this project and I assign a student, the student can come in here and see, okay, we have an announcement. Maybe this is a call sheet task, maybe it's a breakdown task, but I can tell them exactly what needs to be done. This is the information that I want you to work with. These are the tasks. Please take a look at them. All relevant information is in files and documents. And if you have any questions, just at me in the relevant comment section. The student immediately knows, okay, I have context, I know what this requires, and I've preset all of this. Everything was ready to go, and all I did was simply create the project and assign the student. So they have context for what needs to be done. What else can they see? They can see, okay, who's working on this? Maybe it's just 2 people, maybe it's lots of people. Whatever the case is, there is access right management. So again, on student projects, you can generally give a lot of access. Depending on the position you give a student, basically Yamdu will actually prompt the access that you have. So in most cases, you don't have to do anything. You just add the student, give them a position, and they can get to work because they'll have the information they need for that project. So they have that. Another important thing is that I can decide what sections are relevant for this exercise. I can say, for example, here that we don't need certain tools, they're not relevant just yet. We're solely focusing on a breakdown and these specific things. So Yamdu scales down very nicely so that you're just seeing the tools you need. And that's very important. It scales depending on the size of the project, also depending on the size of the team. So you have that ability, and the students can create, information about the project they're working on that they want to export. They can work with episodic features should they need to. All of these things can be done quite easily. The other key thing is that we have files and documents. So I can structure this area however I want, and I can basically say to the student, everything that you need is right in here. If you need to see a call sheet, how-to, if you need to see the course files, if you need supplementary files, if you want some video files, I can add all of that detail right here. So the student knows I can always refer to this information, and if I need any additional detail, I'll reach out then, not now. I'll first take a look at what I have. So the student can immediately jump in. Maybe it's a file, maybe it's a document, maybe it's a link directly to a tutorial, for example, of how to create this, or a previous lecture that the lecturer has provided in a form or in a previous class. So you can add information or you can link to that detail directly. And you create this template that can be reused every single time. Again, you can set very clear tasks. You can have always the same 3 things that need to be accomplished, whether it's importing the script, breaking down the elements, and then in the department side of things, maybe adding the elements that actually will be used. So you can basically create a task, and then inside here, you can use that as an actual communication hub, basically where you can add subtasks, or people can share images and files and links and communicate directly as well. So if I come in here 2 weeks later as a lecturer and I see nothing has been done, I can directly write a comment, use the @ symbol to tag the student and say, is everything progressing okay? Are you unsure of something? Please be aware of the fact that there's a deadline approaching, and you can set deadlines for all of these various tasks that will appear in the calendar. So if there's meetings or events or anything like this, you can create them and you can add them right here, and all of that information will be displayed. So I create this template. I can use that to make a multitude of projects. But let's say that, for example, we have a different type of project. Let's say it's a class short film. I can use a different template for that completely. I can open this up a bit because lots of different people are working on the project. So I can bring them on board in the crew area just by adding them to the project. Then they can basically work with more tools, more things within Yamdu, all of the different features that we provide. So I can bring everyone on board. I can say, here's the entire team, and they can see, okay, we have, again, our tasks that we need to accomplish. They can get to work, they can communicate, they can collaborate, and they can start doing all of the elements that are required for a project. I can preload a script. I could add a production schedule if I need to. I can have in files and documents any information that I think is relevant for the students in a completely different structure. So it scales according to the type of project that you're working with. But to show you a few additional things and to go more in depth with a more fully fleshed out project, I want to jump just to a slightly different thing. So just bear with me for a second while I jump over to another project within Yamdu. So again, I hope now you can see again that, this is my view when I enter the system. Here are my different, projects. Here are the different tasks I've set out. Here's my calendar where I can see, what stage of production are the students at? What meetings do I have coming up? Are there deadlines approaching for tasks? Are they already shooting on a specific project? I can see all of that detail immediately right here. And the calendar function is one of the key things from the faculty perspective. You see all of that information. You can filter that information by project or by category or by user. So if you need to see what a specific student's calendar looks like, you can do that very easily and filter out all of the other information that's not relevant. If you need to see when the staff meetings are, or when your team meetings are, or when your direct one-on-ones with the students are, you can do that too, and you can filter by project as well. So you can do all of this. And of course, that makes it very easy to work with all of these things because of the fact that project volume is not an issue. No matter how many projects you work on, you can very easily track them. And you always have your database of information to work with. You can even add additional things like resource planning, where if you have within the university itself equipment that can be used, you can actually book those things and have, book things out for students to use and track when they're used over time. So you can very easily see, when certain things are in use, when they're required, whether it's cameras, whether it's anything else. And you'll forgive us for using Alexa cameras from ARI, of course, because of the fact that they're our partners, and we've worked very closely with them in many ways because they also have a post-production system that can be integrated directly with the Yamdu. But you can track all of that information in one place. So just to show you, if I jump into a project, let's say that this is a student project. The student, of course, from their perspective, has a structure. They can see very clearly, okay, I have some general tools, I have the breakdown details, I can plan, and there's department-specific information as well. They can see meetings and events just as the lecturer can, because the lecturer is seeing all of this detail too. They have prompts for things they might wish to do. Again, that framework giving them a sense of what needs to be done. And they can also see, what's new, what's happening, is there new information? And that's vital for faculty too, because if I haven't jumped into one of my students' projects in a week and I want to just quickly scroll through and see, okay, are they adding detail? What are they discussing? How's it developing? I can do that. So you have that ability right in one place. All of the crew are on board. They have access rights. They have positions. They can work together. We can pull people in from the database, as we've already mentioned. So the university information is always reusable. In files and documents, you can add a lot of detail. You can use whatever structure you want. And let's say you're giving students some information to work with. You can basically say, okay, guys, here's the script. This is what it looks like. We have different versions. You can even have that kind of academic discussion within Yamdu itself. You could use this as a forum for discussion with the students. Maybe the student has added a first draft of the script that you don't think is quite up to scratch or you want to give some notes on. You could basically just at the person, give them some suggestions, and then ask them to maybe make some changes. And they can then upload a new version. So again, you're not dealing with emails sending different files back and forth. You can basically say, just upload a new version, keep the same file name. Yamdu will understand that it's the latest version. And then when it's up there, I'll get a notification because I have that turned on, and I can take a look directly. So again, it's a very easy way just to jump in, find the detail you need, review things, give notes, discuss things, maybe give suggestions, and then whenever something new comes on board, you just get a little ping from Yamdu letting you know student A's new script is online. You can jump in immediately and take a look. So you have that ability. You can link to information outside the system, and again, you can communicate and collaborate, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's with multiple people on a specific project. But it's not just versioning files or versioning scripts or adding photographs or adding anything like this. You also can see that there is the ability to review visual content directly within the system. So you can see right here that the student could upload what they've shot. They could basically say, here's what I have so far. And here you can see that I can comment directly. As the lecturer in this case, I could say, it looks very good. I have a couple of notes. And I could actually, if I want to, go through the visual content and timestamp things. I could go to a certain point and say, we discussed in class the best way to get this a little bit lighter so that it just reads better on screen and you don't miss out on anything. Maybe you can play around with that. Maybe you can edit that. Maybe that's your task for the next few days. We can actually review this information in real time. We can see as well different versions. The students could upload versions as things change. They could start with their rough cut. They could then move on to the final cut, and you could actually see the changes that take place and say, let's look at the progression together. You've actually accomplished things. You've figured out the right way to cut. You've figured out the right way to light. And we can see how you've developed over the course of this project. So you have that ability to actually teach information, give feedback, share detail, and ask for feedback, all in one centralized location. No emails, very, very simple and straightforward. And you can version, you can download, you can send via email. You can, have all of that stored in one central location. And again, all of that is there as a record at the end of the project. It's there. You can pull it off Yamdu into local storage, or it can just sit there and you can draw from it whenever you need to. So 10 years down the line, if you want to show a previous student project to show how well someone developed over time, you can do that very easily because that project is just sitting there in your university account. So all of the crew, all of the team, all of the students are in one place. Files and documents can be uploaded and shared, or that area can be added to as the project progresses. Tasks, as we've seen, can be added. You have a project calendar showing you everything that's happening. Meetings, events, e-meets, Zoom calls, whatever it might be, all of that. And the deadlines, of course, again, making it clear to everyone that we need to do these things by these dates, or else we're going to have some issues. But again, all of that in one location. And as well as that, you can see that we have the core filmmaking tools. So you might have a project where, for example, the students need to create a script, which they can do in Final Draft, Celtex, Fountain, even Word, if they turn it into a PDF that can be read if it's in the correct format, and they can import that directly into Yamdu. So again, I just want to give you a quick sense rather than dwell on like the actual process within Yamdu, but students can work with a script. The script might be added by the teacher, the script might be created by the student. But whatever the case may be, they can then do a breakdown directly within Yamdu. They can see here, that we have scene 1. This is what's been added. This is the detail we're working with. And basically, okay, the characters have been pulled out of the script, so have the sets. But the student can then, add costumes. They can select from existing ones. They can add new ones. They can also, if they want to, directly tag the screenplay. So they can learn the art of breaking down a script directly within Yamdu. They can, for example, select the old map, say that this is a prop, and then tag all mentions of that in the script. So they get the sense of, okay, if I do this, there's a consequence. This old map is a prop. It's now added to the prop area in this list in the breakdown. But the key thing with Yamdu is that it's not just that. The student isn't just, stopping at that point. They need to understand that there's an interconnectivity here, and the system forces that to learn that because of the fact that this old map is not merely on a list on this computer, it goes directly to the relevant department. So it teaches you that things branch out in a production. And the old map is something that concerns the production design team. So again, if a student is working on as a production design member on a project, they can see directly right here that, okay, here are all the things we need to find. Here's this old map. And again, from a creative point of view, there are lots of options. If an old map needs to be found and there's a team of students working it, they have this ability, this forum within Yamdu, to discuss things directly within the system. They can upload images and files like a mood board to see what might be the best thing. They can actually, comment directly, is this the right option? They can also then select various props that they can actually access and suggest these for that old map. And eventually they can vote, they can rate the best options, and they can eventually select the map that they think works best. So again, there's communication, collaboration, and again, from the top down, a lecturer can jump in and give some advice, remind them of something, whatever might be important. But that same function works throughout the system. The students are encouraged to work, to add things, to jump in, play around, get a sense of things. If they're unsure of something in Yamdu, as I mentioned, they can just directly contact us. They don't need to jump out and ask faculty. They can just say, hey, I'm in the sets area. How do I do this? How do I assign a location? Or if they want, they can see maybe there's some material that Yamdu provides that I can take a look at. And again, that's another job or another 20-minute conversation that the students can have with us rather than with you. So you have that ability to, import your sets and assign them to locations. Makeup and hair can be completely managed again. Again, if it's necessary, it's there. If it's not necessary, that's fine too. You can just deactivate that as a function. And you can also see here that you have the ability to work with costumes and also, of course, with casting. So if a student has to cast various actors for their project and you want to see how they do that and the process, you can see that. You can see that they have the option to suggest actors, to consider different roles. You can do that for them. You can say, here's some information, see what you think, vote, discuss it, and come back to me when you have a decision. But I can track that detail. I can get a sense of how everything is progressing, what people are thinking. When someone is picked, then the great thing is all the students immediately know this is the actor, this is the role, and here's the information we have about the actor. It might not be that elaborate for a student project, but the option is there to add any information that's relevant. And the key thing, if you're teaching students to kind of add key information to profiles like this, is that that information then can be reused in the database. So when the university at a later point needs to see, what actors might be good fits for certain roles. If a student comes to you and says, I need an actor that can play 40 to 60 and can speak a certain language and has a certain hair type or a certain look, that information can be searched for in Yamdu. You can basically filter that detail and then see, okay, here's a couple of options that I can share with the students. It could be an admin doing this, it could be the lecturer. There are lots of different options about how that conversation can take place. But again, students are being encouraged to figure things out for themselves and learn information, which is vitally important. The other important things, of course, are that when we jump back into our project again, you have that ability to, okay, from a department-specific perspective, learn how things work, learn how production design works, learn costumes, and all of that information. And as well, it links to other areas, like, for example, the shooting schedule, where you have to factor in, can we use props on the first 2 days and then at the end of the shoot 2 weeks later? Does that work? Does that make sense? Do we have to rent it for the entire period? All of that thing, the system actually prompts you to take note of because things like day out of days are automatically added. But of course, not every project is scripted, and you might want to give your students the opportunity to work with, for example, shots. Maybe you want them simply to create a shot list. In Yamdu, they can do that very easily. You can say, okay, create a shot list, add some images, and maybe even do a breakdown as elaborate as the one we already did. Maybe because this is again very visual, I want you to actually, tell me, how does this look? What's the shot? Is there movement? What equipment would you need? The lenses, the frame rate, all of these different things you can have the students consider. So you, from the faculty perspective, can jump in and see whether or not these things make sense. If the student gets it, if they need a note, if that's something that you might want to discuss in a follow-up class so that everyone's on the same page and they know that something like this is important and it's important not to get it wrong. So again, teachers learning from the students are of course learning from the teachers, and there's communication, collaboration, and that easy ability to jump in and see information. You can use the shots to create AV scripts, again, which is a nice simple way to give students a sense of visual and audio side by side. If they need to create storyboards, they can add images, they can use the shots, and they can basically export that information. And exporting is key in Yamdu, whether it's calendars or profiles of actors or costumes or day out of days or script sides or shooting schedules, you can export everything. So if a student needs to put together a little book of everything, or if there's an area in files and documents where you want them to just add all of those pieces of information, they can do that. And they can make your life a lot easier. And basically at the end of the project, you can say, I want to see this collection of information, put it right here in the system, and then I'll take a look and review it. Again, everything right where you need it, collected for you, and communicated very clearly to everyone involved. And also here you can see as well that, of course, documentaries might be a part of the student projects, something where they need to learn how to work with non-scripted or non-shot-based projects, and they can do that by creating content items. You can basically tell them, I want you to create the building blocks of the visual content. So it might be an interview, it might be an establishing shot, it could be drone footage, it could be a simple a shot that needs to establish where we are, who's talking, what the situation is. All of these things can be worked with together. So the student learns these are the elements that make up the visual content over time when they all come together in accordance with the departments and all of the other things that need to be accomplished. And the last two things that I think it's important for students to learn about, something that's very detailed and something that, the more information they have, the better, would be in relation to shooting scheduling and call sheets, and also, of course, production calendars. So this is something that the lecturer can also control. In the project, you can basically empower the student. You can say, this is the project, or you're working on a short film, for example. I'm going to give you a sense of how that's going to develop. This is the normal progression for a project like this. These are the steps. These are the stages, and the structure should look something like this. But of course, it's going to change as you work on it. So if you want, you can actually have them build up a production schedule bit by bit just to learn the process, or you can provide them with one as a start or in an early project so that they understand, okay, this is how it develops, whether it's over months or whether it's on a day-by-day basis. And obviously the turnaround on a student project would be very quick as opposed to being as drawn out as this. But you can reuse that template on every subsequent project whenever necessary. And the students can edit this in real time. So they can get a sense that, okay, projects change, things evolve, but we have dependencies between steps. And I understand that if this moves out, if the script draft goes a bit long, that means production starts later. That means that, we can't get everything done in the way we had hoped. Maybe certain things then need to be pushed forwards or back. So that interconnectivity, that sense of the entirety, the enormity of this production can be understood very easily by the student because Yamdu is providing a framework. And within that framework, the teacher and the faculty can provide additional details according to what they think makes sense. So completely customizable. There are steps there for students to draw from or for a lecturer to build up, and reusable on every subsequent project. And the last couple of things I want to show you, again, before reiterating and pointing out a couple of other key things, are that whatever content the student works with, they have the ability to create a shooting schedule. So again, it could be the lecturer in a class using Yamdu and using a project like this to say, guys, this is how it works. You've imported your script, so you have scenes. This is a strip board. What you need to do is select all of the various scenes that you're working with and pull them in here. So now we have a strip board with all information attached, or some information attached in these columns right here. We can see very clearly the information, scene details, the actor information, and we can actually select the columns, because the art of creating a shooting schedule involves identifying the key criteria that allow you to create a seamless and perfect shooting schedule. And sometimes it won't add up. Sometimes you'll have to lose out on something to gain it in another area. But I'm going to give you a sense of how this structure works. So you have that ability to provide the students with a sense of this. They will know this from the onboarding too, because we'll give them a general outline, and then they can play around. They can learn that we might need to reorder strips by set or by location, and they can play around and try that. They can add day breaks and information like this. So they could manually start playing around and say, you tell them to create a 3-day shoot. They create it. And in the back of your mind, you've given them various problems. Maybe you told them Sam Romain is only available on day 3. So they have to figure out that, okay, if he goes to day 3, we have 2 scenes now at the start. Maybe we can substitute some other scenes with actors that are already there, but now the environment isn't quite right, or maybe there's a different set. So maybe we might need to have a banner, for example, or we need to have a company move or a lunch break, or something that we need to take into account. So the student is learning, whether it's hypothetical or whether it's on the actual short films that they're working on, how this works, how everything interrelates, how does it come together, and they can save things as drafts. They can do this and then say, for example, that they want to send it out to one of the teachers, for example. They can just go back to view mode. They can say, okay, let's create a PDF export and say, basically, here's what I come up with. Does this work? Or they can upload that in files and documents and say, lecturer, what do you think? Does this work? Does everything here make sense? Please give me your feedback, if you want them to do that, of course. So you have that ability. And then again, this can be used to discuss things later. And you also have the ability, and the student has, to see the day out of days. So they can see, does it make sense if there's a huge gap in the middle where, an actor is basically there in the first and last days of shooting, but not there in any other days? Does that make sense? As a lecturer, you can actually say, you've done a good job, but there's something you didn't consider. There's a problem here that will need to be resolved. It's costly, it's ineffective. So maybe change that, and then we'll see what other problems arise. But you have to learn to roll with these different punches. So you have that ability to teach and impart wisdom and knowledge about the structure and how everything functions in these projects. And the other key thing, of course, is that you can export that to create a call sheet. The other thing to point out quickly is that if budgeting is an element that needs to be thought, we have an integration with Showbiz Budgeting for media services, so that you can export the shooting schedule directly out there if necessary. And it's a great system for tracking all of those various things. But just to show you here too, let's say the student has created a shooting schedule. They can then actually generate a call sheet. They can use Yamdu to just basically take the information from the shooting schedule call sheet, or from the shooting schedule, from the breakdown, from the department instructions, and they learn that all of these things need to be displayed, and there's lots of other information that they want to have, or they might want to have displayed too. They can generate this from the shooting schedule, or you can tell them directly, don't do that. Build it from scratch, learn it the hard way, learn how to put that detail together. Both options are possible in Yamdu. But the student basically has the detail to work with. So, they had the scenes laid out, they have them here. They can see that the call times are related to the scenes, the start times of the scenes. They can see that, okay, all of the production design elements, all of the props, all of the detail needs to be listed. All of that needs to be included so that everyone knows things. And we need to have locations. I didn't select one, but let's say we're shooting, theoretically, of course, at Grand Central Station. We can add that. And Yamdu does things like add a map showing where that is, provided there's a real world address. It tells you the weather there, the nearest hospital. So again, it's giving you a sense of the detail that needs to be there. And there are different designs to choose from, and the ability to edit everything and also to add other elements. So you can simply tell the student, a call sheet, the way I like to do it, or the way the industry standard dictates, includes the following elements. I need to see all of those on the call sheet. I leave it up to you how you do it. We discuss that later and see what you've come back with. So again, there is a framework. The student has a sense of where they are in a project, the key things they need to keep in mind, the general elements of planning and scheduling, the creative elements of breaking down the script or creating a script or adding a shot list or a storyboard, or whatever it might be. Whether it's a documentary, a short film, an animated project, a computer generated project, there is a structure for everything within Yamdu. And the key thing, and I can't stress it enough, is that every single thing can be templated. So you don't have to do redundant work. You don't have to create something again. You create something that works, a structure that the students like, that you learn from over time, and that's the basis then for every subsequent project that you work on. And again, we're looking at the different tools and imagining different perspectives. But the other key thing to remember is that Yamdu is also a forum for discussion. So in a class scenario, we can share a project. We can have a student show us a project, describe their decision making, maybe get some constructive criticism from their peers or from the faculty, and again create an atmosphere where everyone is discussing things, learning together. Or it could be a final review where basically it's the lecturer and the student going through everything together, discussing things in real time, pointing out the good things, mentioning how to avoid making the same mistakes again. All of these things are possible. And whether it's an exercise that's a 1 day or a 2 hour thing, whether it's a short film that will take 6 months of the final year, there is a structure for absolutely everything in Yamdu, and it takes out of the equation, the massive project volume that many universities work with. So ultimately, that is pretty much everything that Yamdu offers. I mean, as you can see, there are many different things. Student can learn about departments and all of the key elements of Yamdu. And I just want to point out that, of course, I'm sure there are lots of questions. Anytime we do webinars like this, people want more information. So you can directly contact us at academic@yamdu.com. You can also contact me directly at mick, M-I-C-K, at yamdu.com if you need more information. I'd be happy to share more detail if necessary. If anyone would like to jump on a follow-up call and discuss options for Yamdu University, we can do that. And the last thing to point out, and the most important thing perhaps, and the information you were hoping to glean, I'd imagine, from this webinar, is that every university plan is customized. It's according to faculty needs, student needs, project volume, number of students. All of those factors are taken into equation. So we work with massive organizations on a huge scale with hundreds of students each year, and we work with smaller courses where it might be 5 or 6 or 10 students working, and that's all that's required. There is a Yamdu University to fit for every kind of project. We would love to have more of you on board. And if you have any questions, as I mentioned, academic@yamdu.com, or if you want to contact me directly, M-I-C-K, mick@yamdu.com. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to hear from a lot of you soon. So thank you very much, and all the best. Goodbye.